Welcome everyone to our founder chats today. I'm really excited to be introducing you to Antonia McGrath, who's the founder and director of Educate. So I'm excited for you to learn more about this nonprofit organization. And what I picked up on is that you empower children and youth in Honduras through education, but I think that we all want to know a lot more about what that means. So before I hand it over to you, just in terms of what this looks like, the Founders Chats. We've been doing these since April, I believe, April or May, weekly with different founders from our community from all over the world to provide kind of 30 minutes of space to talk about what you're up to, what you've learned in the time that you've launched your business, what COVID has looked like for you and your community and your industry. And I know I saw that you have a COVID emergency campaign over at Educate, so I'm interested to hear more about that. And so kind of like all the things. So we dig into lots of different things. It's a very casual conversation. So if you're hanging out with us in the chat here, whether you're hanging out with us live or on IGTV or YouTube later, where we also are and where we put these videos afterwards, please make sure to say hello and ask us questions, and we will make sure to pass those along. So my name is Melanie, by the way. I always forget to introduce myself. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners of Volition. Oops, I had a pop-up. Sorry about that. Hi, Sabrina. Great to see you. Okay, so I'm going to put that pop-up away because that's going to confuse me. And in the meantime, once again, I'd like to introduce you to Antonia McGrath. I keep having pop-ups coming up all over the place. Goodness gracious. Okay, so Antonia, we met you, I met you in Madrid. No. Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Amsterdam, Women's Pitch Night, Amsterdam in November 2019, I believe. And I loved hearing about what you were doing. You were one of the top pitchers of the evening. And I think what I love to do here right now is just to hear in your words, how do you describe Educate to start with? And then we can dig into kind of the origin stories and all the things.
Cool. Yeah, no, thanks so much, Melody. It's great to be here. It's exciting to sort of have these chats. It's nice to always share what we've been up to. Yeah, no, Educate. So Educate is a grassroots nonprofit organization. We work in Honduras, really supporting locally led change in the public education sector. So working together with public high schools and primary schools to start projects that are really strengthening existing schools from the inside. Things like a scholarship program, sending these really high potential young people to university. We work with teachers to set up programs like library projects or nutrition programs, trying to really strengthen the education system.
Okay, right. So where did this come from? Tell us the origin story.
Yeah, it started a while back, and then there was sort of a slow progression until it finally sort of kicked off. I moved to Honduras when I was 18, so right after I finished high school, to spend a year working at a children's home with kids from sort of, all sorts of really difficult backgrounds. I mean, Honduras is a, I don't want to say underdeveloped country, but it has a lot of sort of social and economic, very deep-rooted issues that, stem from
right.
But so kids with really, really difficult stories, and working there was just incredibly eye-opening, and seeing just the vast disparities in opportunities that kids had, but also the ways in which the whole sector just didn't seem to be taking into account how these fantastic local leaders that were in these communities whose voices were heard. And so that's kind of why we started it up.
Right. And so my understanding is that, I think I was reading on your website that you kind of flipped the humanitarian aid kind of conversation on its head, and you more so focus on these communities coming to you and saying, this is what we need. And I was wondering if you could dig into kind of the idea behind that for us.
Yeah, I think usually in the sort of nonprofit sector, there's you come up with an idea and you go and you implement it, or you go to help.
Exactly. You're like, I'll be a champion, I'll be the hero, and like well-intentioning, but yes.
Well-intentioned almost always, but has sort of very othering manner. And so, spending a year in Honduras and getting to know some fantastic teachers and people who are doing a lot of stuff, and wanting to sort of shift resources to those people who really understand what their communities need and understand how to implement it and have the sort of networks and relationships and trust. So yeah, I mean, we also saw a lot of the failings. I mean, my year in Honduras was not a super positive smiles and
Right.
kids year. It was very seeing a lot of really dark sides to the nonprofit sector, and so
Yeah.
experience has really shaped wanting to also see if we could do it differently.
Right. And have you been able to do that successfully, do you feel?
So far, I mean, we're still very small. We're very, very still a grassroots, working with small schools on a small scale. But the impact that I think we've been able to achieve through having that very bottom up, community based system or process of working, it has really done some really cool stuff. I mean, what's been happening at some of these schools, even during COVID, has just been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So can you talk us through some of that? Like to walk us through, I don't think I feel like it's kind of hard for us to sometimes envision what this looks like on the ground and like what your life has looked like in building this, but also what some of these projects have looked like and what is some of that impact that's been made that's like kind of your when you think about, what impact have we made, what kind of like lights up your heart? What's that story that you love to tell?
There was this one library project that a teacher reached out to us on Facebook actually, and had this idea of setting up a library. And the school was 3 hours by donkey into the mountains without electricity or running water, or like really not connected to any sort of infrastructure or anything. And there's like 30 kids with one teacher all across the whole primary school in this little school. And they'd seen this other library project that we'd done and sort of thought like, we'd love to do this at our school. And we started talking to them, and they had all these ideas about the different projects they wanted to do and what kind of books they wanted. They really wanted to learn about the environment. And so the community spent a year raising a portion of the funds for the projects, like all the kids getting together and cooking and selling these foods at different days, and a whole year of work with every single child, every single parent from this community. And then at the end of that year of planning what they wanted that library to be and fundraising for it, we and together, obviously with our Honduras team, I don't mean sort of we as the me, came, we'd purchased the books, both ones that they'd sort of specifically requested, and other sort of Latin America books, as well as sort of books from all over the world. We're really trying to sort of have a lot of diversity in there. And this whole like community library creation week where there's like mural painting and it was beautiful of having that sort of really co-created space. And then that's gone on to those kids from this school, which is super remote, really, really disconnected community, have speak at department-wide conferences about how they set up their own library. They're in the process of writing a book that we're going to publish soon. It's just incredible to kids have just taken this on and just blossomed in so many different directions. It's really, really cool.
That's very cool. I love that. So in terms of the role you play at Educate, you're saying like did you work through that kind of like whole year-long process with them and then facilitated bringing the books in, or what does it look like to work with the Educate team?
It starts off with asking a lot of questions and just like sort of getting on the same page, seeing what the community's sort of vision is, and if we're even the sort of right fit as an organization to work together, because just seeing if there's a good sort of match there. And then we have a sort of general outline of it. Like for libraries, we've done several libraries in different parts of Honduras, so we have a sort of baseline that we can use to guide community through, what are the important things to think about. And but communities basically create a committee, so there'll be teachers, parents, and students, and other members of the community on that, and they're the ones that sort of take the lead. But there's a lot of discussion back and forth about what. It depends a little bit from each.
Okay.
Yeah.
You kind of have the educational, or you have the know-how, having gone through building these projects before, have some frameworks in place, and kind of can help structure the process a bit, it sounds like.
Yeah, and sort of network with people like carpenters, or how can we
that's very cool.
Books and all those kinds of things.
Okay. Oh, I love it. Alrighty. So those who have joined us, I keep seeing a little thing as if someone's asking a question, but when I tap on it, it doesn't let me see it right now. So I apologize. If you have a question, please put it in the chat because I will see it there. But hello, everyone who's just joined us, just to kind of get you up to speed a bit. We're talking to Antonia McGrath, who is the founder and director of Educate, a nonprofit or not-for-profit. Everyone calls it kind of different things, that works to empower children and youth in Honduras through education. And she's just talking through one of the year-long projects, it sounds, and building out a library that was co-created by the community there, which sounded really incredible. Hello. All right, so thank you so much for walking us through that. And you mentioned COVID and these communities and what they've been through. And I would love to know kind of what has the last, how long has it been now? I don't even know. What has it looked like since March for you as a team, but also for these communities that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, very different. I mean, on the one side, for the communities that we work with, it's been incredibly hard. I mean, they're just, families who just earn a living on a day-to-day basis. Having lockdown has just been possible to, put food on the table. And so one of the things we've done is also shifted towards doing some sort of food package relief for families, because there's just, I mean, we are an education-focused organization, and that's important to stick with what we can do best, but it's also important that kids
in order to be educated need to have kind of like food to provide energy and
not eating. So that's been difficult. And then in the last couple of weeks, Honduras has also been hit by 2 record-breaking hurricanes, which is,
I saw that, yes.
So the sort of, it's all kind of come together in a pretty destructive way. So that's been difficult, but at the same time, I think our team, both in Honduras and in Amsterdam, where we also have a team, has really come together in a very strong way of also being able to find ways that we can continue supporting, and also evaluating the importance of why we exist and what we exist for, and what the importance of that is, and how we can continue to go about our work in the most effective way under the current circumstances, which is also I feel like it's really strengthened our team as well. And what was interesting is that about a week or 2 before we went into lockdown here in Amsterdam, we doubled in size. We went from we went from having 5 people on our team in Amsterdam to being like 18. And
what? What happened?
Well, we recruited a bunch of people because we wanted to this year really upscale our fundraising so that we could also our work in Honduras. And so we set up all these different teams and had this whole grand plan of how it was all going to work. And then obviously totally had to shift that. And I was really surprised by how well it went. Every single person was absolutely amazing. But doing that shift with people you don't really know yet as a team, going straight online, it was an interesting period.
That's incredible. I have so many questions right now. I don't know which direction to go in, to be honest. Because I'm thinking about what you've just gone through with your team, and you've been building this for a few years, you said. When was when did you decide to build Educate?
We were officially registered in March of 2017. So that's
okay. Okay, so it's been quite the journey, but it sounds like the last few months or last 8 months or whenever, I don't remember when Amsterdam went lockdown the first time, to be honest. But I'm curious, in terms of lessons learned as the founder of this organization and working with these people who are also, I assume, very passion driven or impact driven people. And it's been such an intense year for everyone, but what are some lessons learned that you've had that maybe other founders and entrepreneurs and people who work in the nonprofit space in particular might be able to take away from?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I think, thinking about the team and sort of the process of working with other sort of wonderful people, it's allowing myself also to let go of different aspects of Educate has been really
Right.
wonderful to see how other people can come in and take over different aspects and bring their own ideas and shape different aspects of Educate. And
Mm-hmm.
at first it was a little bit, it's sort of like your baby, like it's, you create
Yeah.
and you sort of put it all into this thing, and then to let other
It
people
lives up here and then it's like out in the world. Yes.
release different aspects and let other,
Yes.
but really letting other people do that and take on different things. And it's seeing people sort of do that has been really cool. I think that's something I've definitely learned in this process of COVID, where things have just been, there's just been so much going on that you can't do it all yourself, and it's so important to have other people on your team and to let those people run with their ideas. And it's been great.
Yeah. Incredible. Okay, so what is the vision for Educate then? If you're looking into the crystal ball of what this could look like, and the lessons learned from this year and all the pieces. So what do you envision this turning into?
We're starting to work more closely together with local government. So
Okay.
what we'd really like to do is to establish sort of through those relationships, be able to work even more sort of with a systems perspective than we have been so far, so that we can really, at the moment, we're focusing on sort of one municipality and seeing if we can really work with the municipality here to almost sort of create like a model municipality for the education.
Right.
If this can like scale up to that level, and then if it works, then who knows, maybe we'll get like, I don't know, I don't want to say like nationwide, but you never know.
Why not say it? Just say it. Just say it. Just be nationwide. That's incredible though. It's almost like you like have this kind of like pilot, I guess, of like figuring out what works and building this network and getting to know the community better, and like what the needs are, what the shifting needs are, and what happens during a pandemic, and how that impacts the community. I feel like you and the community have been very tested, and like your framework and your team has been tested. So I feel like you probably have so many really important insights that governments would appreciate. Hopefully. That's really great. Like shifting to working with governments, what has that been like for you in terms of like, again, like lessons learned? And I know like as also working in nonprofit space, like there's such a difference between working with community and like community champions versus working with government and trying to like bridge the two too.
Yeah, and I'm also very political and very sort of have a lot of thoughts on the political situation. Raises other sort of questions about what's the most ethical thing to do and how do you, where do you sort of channel your support. But I think if you're able to I mean, the education sector is a system, and if you're going to be able to tackle it from a systematic perspective, it's just imperative that you form relationships with local government. And it also, if we can do it successfully, I think it'll really make a big difference in allowing the work to also be even more long term. Like I think it's very long already because of the way that it's so locally led, but if it can be, really tied to the local educational system itself rather than just to local leaders, that's another step in sort of a direction of really creating a long lasting and even more sort of deeply sustainable impact.
Absolutely. And just like also like shifting like behaviors and like ways of thinking about what's possible. And like I love the picture you painted for us of like creating this library and having like the doing the murals and like infusing creativity into this, and all of these pieces I think is incredible, and sometimes difficult within the education system to kind of embed that way of doing, that community first kind of grassroots way of doing. And I think that's amazing. I love what you're doing. I love it. Okay, so I know that we're kind of in our last few questions here. So for those who have joined us in the last little bit, if you don't already know, you are more than welcome to say hello, introduce yourself, and ask Antonia your own questions. So far we've learned about a bit of the origin story of Educate, and what your vision is of what 2020 has kind of looked like. Now, we touched on a little bit about what your communities have gone through this past year, and you mentioned these hurricanes, and I know that you have, is it a crowdfunding campaign
Yeah.
in place? Do you want to tell us about that in case anyone wants to to support?
So with the sort of combination of obviously already a lot of difficulties in the education sector, then COVID happening, and now there having been two huge hurricanes that have just absolutely decimated a lot of the country, that they're estimating that over 3 million people have been affected. And so we've got an emergency crowdfunding campaign at the moment. It's in the link of Educate's bio on Instagram. And we're raising money with a sort of long-term focus on rebuilding these educational systems for young people and providing support both immediately through food packages and at-home learning and socio-emotional support, but also sort of more long-term programs of supporting kids and staying engaged in their communities, staying engaged in school while schools are still closed and their communities are reeling from the aftermath of these disasters. So we've got a lot going on, and our team in Honduras has been amazing in the ways that they're just continuing to, like, communities continuing to come together and keep supporting each other. There hasn't been a whole lot of relief work happening, unfortunately. So it's really been community-based support that's keeping people going at the moment. So we really want to make sure that we can continue to also stand with the communities that we support, in making sure that kids and young people are supported, because I think that's really fundamental to making sure that there's a rebuilding after these disasters, and that people can start to also look beyond the destruction that's still very present at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so Educate's Instagram is educate.ngo. So if you head there, the bit.ly link in the profile, that takes you straight to the crowdfunding page, so you can check that out. And thank you for sharing that as well. Okay, so we already touched a little bit on lessons learned this year as a founder of this not-for-profit, and I'd be curious also. I'm really curious. Actually, I think Boot Camps for Change wasn't here. We do have some other like nonprofit. We often work with for-profit startups or impact startups, but there are a lot of kind of nonprofits who are starting to come to our pitch events and be part of things, which is very cool to see. Yeah, I like that. So I'm curious if you have. You already provided some tips, and so you've already about COVID, but like over the last few years that you've been working on this, if you have any other kind of tips or tools that you would suggest that you maybe wish someone had told you in the beginning. Nonprofit world is a completely different beast, so I'm curious about kind of more overall what your journeys look like and what tips you might have for other entrepreneurs or or people who are founding organizations like yours.
Oof, gosh, that's a good question. Sort of like almost, not quite sure how to say this in the most eloquent way, but sort of daring to look like past barriers in a system. And I think it can become, I mean, obviously I'm looking at this from the sort of nonprofit perspective, but I think it can become so hard sometimes when you see how complex some of these issues are and how many different problems like overlap and like come together in these really convoluted relationships, that it can become really difficult to see a sort of way through it. And I think it's so important to appreciate the complexity of problems and to see that and understand that, but also to learn to sort of see different ways through. And I think that comes also through practice. And I started sort of noticing in the last year that being able to see possibilities more clearly and learning to sort of look at those complicated issues, but really look at what is possible, even
absolutely, yes,
however many interlinking issues there still are, and there's always something. There's always something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just reading The Future We Choose, and one of the quotes is, impossible is not a fact, it's an attitude, which I thought was really interesting. And they were also talking about stubborn optimism and perseverance, bold perseverance, they call it. And they were talking about climate change, but I was then kind of applying that to the work I do in the nonprofit space around women or gender equity. And it can be quite like overwhelming difficult sometimes. And then I think like reminding myself to be stubbornly optimistic and that things can change and to like to paint that picture of what that future could look like, and the different ways through, I think is difficult and also very important when you're working in these kinds of spaces.
Stubborn optimism.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, right? I was like, okay, stubborn optimism, stubborn optimism. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I really like that too. Okay, so let's see here. What was I? Oh, I remember now. So I was also going to ask. Thank you for that. That's really great. And so important. And nonprofit burnout is such a thing. And just like there's so many pieces. So if you're out there listening to this and you work in the nonprofit space and want to jam out on that and have any questions, please feel free to reach out as well. So well, you're not alone, I guess what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you wanted to touch on?
I was gonna, yeah, I've been thinking lately also a lot, I guess with the sort of current global political climate as well, of the importance of also being engaged in the political sort of issues surrounding the themes of your work. And I think working in Honduras, where the political situation is very contentious, it's become really, really interesting, and it's really deepened my understanding of the work I do at Educate, to also be engaged in sort of local political and activist spaces and movements.
Right.
I've been finding that a really interesting way to sort of gain new perspectives on the work I do, but also the other sort of impact sectors of yeah, engaging in politics and the impact that can also have to complement this kind of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And so do you I'm thinking about how are you currently in Netherlands?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Do you like work and engage with political things and impact things in both Honduras and Netherlands? Or like what do you consider to be kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say your home, but like where do you exist?
So yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of my work with Educate, definitely in Honduras, I'm quite engaged there, and have done a lot of also sort of writing and other sort of other work surrounding the political situation there. But yeah. I also sort of see politics as something that is part of sort of your everyday life. Like I feel like the decisions you make day to day are as political as the decision you make when you go to a protest. Like what you choose to spend your money on, what you choose to watch on Netflix, like all of those kinds of little choices that are not overt. I feel like that sort of adds up, and it is political in a sense, and in the way you choose to live your life on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. All right. So as your community here today, what can we do to support you and Educate?
I mean, check out our website. Obviously, we have the crowdfunding campaign if you're interested in looking at that. We also have an event coming up next week about what's going on in Honduras at the moment.
Right.
Some awareness about sort of how different crises have been compounding this year. So that should be really interesting. We have an interesting speaker lined up for that.
Okay.
But yeah, follow us on Instagram or reach out.
Okay. All right, so the website is educate dash NGO. Yeah. I was like, is that a slash? It's a dash. Educate-ngo.com. Yes. Okay. So if you go there, can you find out about all of your events and what's going on your website, or is it better to follow you on Instagram?
Either
or
one.
Both. We'll do both. We'll do both. Okay. Yeah. We'll do both. Okay. So at educate.ngo. Perfect. Okay. Go to both. Go check it out. See what they're up to. If you go to @educate.ngo on Instagram and you follow the bit.ly link, if you missed this, you can find a crowdfunding campaign that's really focused on food security and educational justice for Honduran youth, and what's been going on over there lately. And yeah, make sure to check out what's going on with Educate and keep up to date on their events and all the things. And I just have little circle thing. Okay, you're back. All right. So my last question for you here today is, what is one thing that brings you joy right now?
I have been finding, so my family's very spread out, but we've been sharing a lot of recipes and doing a lot of cooking in COVID times. So that's been bringing me a lot of, yeah, it's always fun. So so I haven't been
That's
able to see any of my
awesome.
family for quite a while, but lots of recipe sharing going.
Well, that's fun. Do you have a favorite recipe?
Oh, I made a great one last week of harissa root vegetables with spicy chickpeas, which was lovely.
Wow. Okay. That sounds incredible. Alrighty. I'm getting like I need to eat my dinner. I'm getting hungry here. That's awesome. Okay, thank you. I always like asking that. It's always fun to hear what people say. All right. So if you're joining us later, if you didn't, what was I going to say? I was going to say if you didn't hear the beginning of this, you kind of joined us later on. You can find this on IGTV as well as on YouTube. And on YouTube, we're Volition Advisors, and it should be up in the next kind of 2 hours or 24 hours. And you can hear more about Educate's origin story, about Antonia's journey throughout, about what their vision is, what COVID has looked like, how it's impacted the communities, talked about communities co-creating different projects and how she's going to take over, she's going to work with the government to, to bring this model to the educational system nationwide. That's how I'm going to say that. So really excited about what you're doing. Please do keep us updated, Antonia. It's always really great to hear from you and hear what you're up to. Oh, you can also go to the blog, volitionadvisors.com, and when was it? It was actually early 2020. If you keep going down in our stories, you'll find a startup stories with Antonia, and it's Antonia McGrath, co-founder and director at Educate, is the name of the blog article, and you can learn more about her there as well. So lots of places to learn more about Antonia and Educate, which is great. So thank you so much, Antonia, for joining us here today. It was really great getting to see you again and hearing an update on what's been going on. Really appreciate your time.
It'd be really nice to catch up and be able to share it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Otherwise, I think I'll be back here next week. Keep forgetting my own schedule, to be perfectly honest. I believe that I'm back here next week. I don't have all my thing up. Usually I'm here every single week doing a founder chat. I know that we are ending our founder chats in early December, or mid-December, just to kind of take a bit of a pause and a break and to recalibrate and build up our events and marketing schedule and content schedule, I should say, for 2021. So I'll let you know when it's the last one, but I don't think we are at the last one yet. So otherwise, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Melanie. Thanks so much.
Bye.